Chapter 99. The Doubloon. Ere now it has been related how Ahab was wont to pace his quarter-deck, taking regular turns at either limit, the binnacle and the mainmast. But in the multiplicity of other things requiring narration, it has not been added how that sometimes in these walks, when most plunged in his mood, he was wont to pause in turn at each spot, and stand there strangely eyeing the particular object before him. When he halted before the binnacle with his glance fastened on the pointed needle in the compass, that glance shot like a javelin with the pointed intensity of his purpose. And when resuming his walk he again paused before the mainmast, then as the same riveted glance fastened upon the riveted gold coin there, he still wore the same aspect of nailed firmness, only dashed with a certain wild longing, if not hopefulness. But one morning, turning to pass the doubloon, he seemed to be newly attracted by the strange figures and inscriptions stamped on it, as though now, for the first time, beginning to interpret for himself in some monomaniac way whatever significance might lurk in them. And some certain significance lurks in all things, else all things are little worth, and the round world itself but an empty cipher, except to sell by the cartload as they do hills about Boston, to fill up some morass in the Milky Way. Now this doubloon was of the purest virgin gold, raked somewhere out of the heart of gorgeous hills, whence east and west over golden sands the headwaters of many a patroclus flows. And though now nailed amidst the rustiness of iron bolts and the verdigris of copper spikes, yet untouchable and immaculate to any foulness, it still preserved its Quito glow. Now, though placed amongst a ruthless crew, and every hour passed by ruthless hands, and through the lifelong nights shrouded with thick darkness which might cover any pilfering approach, nevertheless every sunrise found the doubloon where the last sunset left it. For it was set apart and sanctified to the one awe-striking end, and however wanton in their sailor ways, one and all, the mariners revered it as the white whale's talisman. Sometimes they talked it over in the weary watch by night, wondering whose it was to be at last, and whether he would ever live to spend it. Now those noble golden coins of South America are as medals of the sun and tropic token pieces. Here palms, alpacas, and volcanoes, sun disks and stars, ecliptic horns of plenty and rich banners waving, are in luxurious profusion stamped, so that the precious gold seems almost to derive an added preciousness and enhancing glories by passing through those fancy mints so Spanishly poetic. It so chanced that the doubloon of the Pequod was a most wealthy example of these things. On its round border it bore the letters República del Ecuador, Quito. So it was a bright gold, came from a country planted in the middle of the world, and beneath the great equator, and named after it. It had been cast midway up the Andes, and in the unwavering climb that knows no autumn. Zoned by those letters you see the likeness of three Andes summits. From one a flame, a tower on another, and the third a crowing cock. While arching over all of these was a segment of the partition zodiac, the signs all marked with their usual calabastics, and the keystone sun entering the equinoctial point at Libra. Before this equatorial coin, Ahab, unobserved by the others, was now pausing. There's something ever egotistical in mountain tops and towers and all other grand and lofty things. Look here, three peaks as proud as Lucifer. The firm tower, that is Ahab. The volcano, that is Ahab. The courageous, the undaunted, the victorious fowl. That too is Ahab. All are Ahab, and this round gold is but the image of the rounder globe, which, like a magician's glass, to each and every man in turn but mirrors back his own mysterious self. Great pains, small gains for those who ask the world to solve them. It cannot solve itself. Methinks now this coined sun wears a ruddy face, but see, aye, he enters the sign of storms, the equinox, and but 6 months before he wheeled out a former equinox at Aries. From storm to storm, so be it then. Born in throes, it's fit for man shall live in pains and die in pangs. So be it then. Here's a stout stuff for woe to work on. So be it then. No fairy fingers can have pressed the gold, but the devil's claws must have left their moldings there since yesterday, murmured Starbuck to himself, leaning against the bulwarks. The old man seems to read Belshazzar's awful writing. I have never marked the coin inspectingly. He goes below. Let me read. A dark valley between three mighty heaven-abiding peaks that almost seem the Trinity, and some faint earthly symbol. So in this vale of death God girds us round, and over our gloom the sun of righteousness still shines like a beacon and hope. If we bend down our eyes, the dark veil shows her moldy soil, but if we lift them up, the bright sun meets our glance halfway to cheer. Yet, oh, the great sun is no fixture, and if at midnight we would fain snatch some sweet solace from him, we gaze for him in vain. This coin speaks wisely, mildly, truly, but still sadly to me. I will quit it, lest truth shake me falsely. There's now the old mogul, soliloquized Stubb by the try-works. He's been twigging it. And there goes Starbuck from the same, and in both faces I would say might be somewhere within 9 fathoms long. And all from looking at that piece of gold, which I did have it now on Negro Hill or Corlear's Hook, I'd not look at it very long ere spending it. Humph! In my poor insignificant opinion, I regard this as queer. I've seen doubloons before, and now in my voyagings, your doubloons out of old Spain, your doubloons of Peru, your doubloons of Chile, your doubloons of Bolivia, your doubloons of Popayan, with plenty of gold moideres and pistoles and hojes and half hojes and quarter hojes. What then would there be in the doubloon of the equator that is so killingly wonderful? By Golconda, let me read it once. Holla, there's signs and wonders truly. That now is what old Bowditch in his epitome calls the zodiac, and what my almanac below calls ditto. I'll get the almanac as I heard devils can be raised with Double's arithmetic. I'll try my hand at raising a meaning out of these queer curvicues here with Massachusetts calendar. Here, there's a book. Now, let's see. Signs and wonders. The sun. He's always among them. Hem. There they are. Here they go. All alive. Aries or the ram. Taurus or the bull. And Gemini. Here's Gemini himself for the twins. Well, the sun he wheels among them. Aye, here's the coin, and he's just crossed the threshold between 2 of the 12 sitting rooms, all in ring. Book, you lie there. The fact is, you books must know your places. You'll do give us the bare words and facts, but we'll come in to supply the thoughts. That's my small experience so far as the Massachusetts calendar and Bowditch's navigator and Dabble's arithmetic go. Signs and wonders, eh? Pity if there's nothing wonderful in the signs, significant in the wonders. There's a clue somewhere. Wait a bit. Hist, hark, by Jove, I have it. Look you, Dubloon, your zodiac here is the life of man in one round chapter, and I'll now read it off straight out of the book. Come, almanac, to the beginning. There's Aries, or the ram, the lecherous dog, he begets us. Then Taurus, or the bull, he bumps the first thing. Then Gemini, or the twins, that's it. Virtue and vice. We try to reach virtue when, lo, here comes Cancer the crab, and drags us back. And here, going from virtue, Leo, a roaring lion, lies in the path. He gives a few fierce bites and surly dabs with his paw. We escape and hail Virgo the virgin. That's our first love. We marry and think to be happy, for aye, when pop comes Libra, or the scales, happiness weighed and found wanting. And while we are sad about that, Lord, how we suddenly jump, or as Scorpio or the scorpion stings us in the rear. We are curing the wound when whang comes the arrows all round. Sagittarius, or the archer, is amusing himself. As we pluck out the shaft, stand aside. Here's the battering ram. Capricornus, or the goat. Full tilt, he comes rushing, and headlong we are tossed, when Aquarius, or the water-bearer, pours out his whole deluge and drowns us, to wind up with Pisces, or the fishes, we sleep. There's a sermon now writ in high heaven, and the sun goes through it every year, and yet comes out of it all alive and heartily. Jollily he aloft there wheels through toil and trouble, and so alow does jolly Stubb. Oh, jolly's the word for aye. Adieu, Dubloon, but stop. Here comes little King Post. Dodge round the try-works. Now let's hear what he'll have to say. There, he's before it. He'll out with something presently, so he's beginning. I see nothing here but a round thing made of gold. Whoever raises a certain whale, this round thing belongs to him. So what's all this staring been about? It's worth $16, that's true, and at 2 cents the cigar, that's 960 cigars. I won't smirk dirty pipes like Stubb, but I like cigars. And here's 960 of 'em, so here goes Flask aloft to spy 'em out. Shall I cut that wise or foolish now? If be really wise, it is a foolish look to it. Yet if it be really foolish, then has a sort of wise-ish look to it. But avast, here comes our old Manxman, the old hearse driver. He must have been, that is, before he took to the sea. He luffs up before the balloon, holla, and goes round the other side of the mast. Why, there's a horseshoe nailed on that side, and now he's back again. What does that mean? Hark, he's muttering, voice like an old worn-out coffee mill. Prick ears and listen. If the white whale be raised, it must be in a month and a day when the sun stands in some one of these signs. I've studied signs and know their mark. They were taught me 20 years ago by an old witch in Copenhagen. Now, in what sign will the sun be? The horseshoe sign, for there it is, right opposite the gold. And what's the horseshoe sign? The lion is the horseshoe sign, the roaring and devouring lion. Ship, old ship, my old head shakes to think of thee. But here's another rendering now, but still one text. All sorts of men in one kind of world, you see. Dodge again, here comes Queequeg, all tattooing. Looks like the signs of the zodiac himself. What says the cannibal? As I live, he's comparing notes, looking at his thigh bone, thinks the sun is in the thigh or the calf or the bowels, I suppose, as the old women talk in surgeon's astronomy in the back country. And by Jove, he's found something there in the vicinity of his thigh. I guess it's Sagittarius or the Archer. No, he doesn't know what to make of the doubloon. He takes it for an old button off of some king's trousers. But aside again, here comes that ghost devil Fadala. Tail coiled under sight as usual, oakum in the toes of his pumps as usual. What does he say with that look of his? Only makes a sign to the sign and bows himself. There's a sun on the coin, fire worshipper, depend on it. Ho, more and more, this way comes Pip, poor boy, and would he died, or I, he's half horrible to me. He too's been watching all these interpreters, and myself included, and look now, he comes to read, with that unearthly idiot face. Stand away again and hear him, hark. I look, you look, he looks, we look, ye look, they look. Upon my soul, he's been studying Murray's grammar, improving his mind, poor fellow. Well, what's that he says now? Hist. I look, you look, he looks, we look, ye look, they look. Why, he's getting it by heart. Hist again. I look, you look, he looks, we look, ye look, they look. Well, that's funny. And I and you and he and we and ye and they are all bats, and I'm a crow, especially when I stand atop this pine tree here. Caw, 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 ain't I a crow? And where's the scarecrow? He stands, 2 bones stuck in a pair of old trousers and 2 more poked in the sleeves of an old jacket. Wonder if he means me. Complimentary. Poor lad, I could go hang myself. Anyway, for the present I'll quit Pip's vicinity. I can stand the rest, for they have plain wits, but he's too crazy witty for my sanity. So I leave him muttering. Here's the ship's navel, this doubloon here, and there they are all on fire to unscrew it. But unscrew your navel, and what's the consequence? Then again, if it stays here, that is ugly too. When the aught's nailed to the mast, it's a sign that things grow desperate. Ha ha, old Ahab, the white whale, he'll nail ye. This is a pine tree. My father in old Tolling country cut down a pine tree once and found a silver ring grown over it. Some old darky's wedding ring. How did it get there? And so they'll say in resurrection when they come to fish up this old mast, when they find a doubloon lodged in it, with bedded oysters for shaggy bark. Oh, the gold, the precious, precious gold. The green miser'll hoard ye soon. Hish, hish, God goes among the world's blackberrying. Cook, ho, cook and cook us, Jenny, hey, 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 Jenny, Jenny, and get your hoe cake done. This is the end of chapter 99. So we have everybody coming up and staring at this doubloon, and everyone views it as something different. Ahab looks at it and he sees his grand destiny. He sees himself in the mountains. He sees himself in the signs of the mountains. He sees himself astride the world as commander of it all. Starbuck looks at it and sees it as kind of like a sign of greed and doom, that everything is going to be terrible. And they each look at it differently. You know, one person is like, hey, this is 720 cigars. I'm going to smoke me some nice cigars. I'm going to smoke me a lot of cigars. And, you know, some people see it as hope. Some people see it as an object of worship. Pip just sort of sees it as a way to better himself and get off of the ship. I mean, he had that horrible run-in where he got tossed overboard. So now he's studying his grammar so that he's trying to make a better person of himself, studying his grammar, learning to speak properly, learning to speak better, so that hopefully when the ship returns and he comes back with the doubloon in hand, you know, he can quit whaling, maybe set himself up a little shop, maybe get some proper schooling, maybe do something that doesn't involve getting thrown overboard and almost drowned in the middle of the sea. So everyone views this coin as differently. Now, there's a lot of interesting things about coins, and the study of coin is called numismatics. They mentioned that the coin had printed around its ring the city where it was forged. Cast, I guess. Cast is a proper term. The place where this coin was cast. And often in coins, especially back in the day, you had marks around the outside of the coin. Because what people would do is they would get coins, and they'd take a knife, and they would shave off just a little bit of gold on each coin. And they take the gold and then melt it down and they'd sell it. And then they would go and spend the coin. So here you have $16 worth of gold that's made into a coin, and the coin is worth $16. You take a little bit of gold off, and you have $15.90 worth of gold. But the coin is still worth $16. So what they did was they put writing around the outside of the coin, or they milled the edges of the coin. So if you're to take a look at a quarter or a dime today, you will see these lines around the edge, and that's called milling. And what they would do is they would put the milled edges, or they would put words around the outside of the coin, so that if someone took and shaved off a little bit of the gold or the silver, then you would know. And you'd be like, I'm not going to take this coin. It's not worth as much because you cut off the edge. So people used to go around shaving off bits of coin and selling it. And selling the gold. And so they started milling the edges. So why is it on dimes and quarters but not on pennies and nickels? Well, nickels were made out of a base metal, just nickel probably originally, which is why they're called nickels. And pennies were made out of copper, which back in the day wasn't nearly as expensive as silver was. Copper has more industrial uses than silver does, so the prices have equalized a bit. But copper was inexpensive, nickel was inexpensive, but silver was valuable, and silver was what? So than gold. It depends on where you were. Lolly says that silver was more expensive than gold.
That's why the top of the Washington Monument's
aluminum. Top of the Washington Monument's aluminum, because it was the most expensive metal to make then. Even though it's half of the earth, it's a quarter of the earth, something like that. It's one of the most abundant minerals on the earth. But the top of the Washington Monument's made out of aluminum, which was a good choice because it conducts electricity really, really well. So that's why it was replaced with aluminum. But anyway, so those coins were made out of silver. And silver was expensive. And the doubloon was made out of gold. And so gold was expensive. And silver and gold. And this kept people from trimming off the edges of the coins. So That's why the words were written around. And they also had the zodiac on there with all of these different signs. And a lot of people believe in the zodiac and astrology and how the day that you're born affects the course of your life and affects your personality. And they've done studies about this where they've taken a paragraph of just sort of general platitudes and say, this describes blah, blah, blah. And so you'd have a researcher with a stack of index cards, and it's like, okay, what's your zodiac sign? It's like, I'm a Libra. So they come in, Libras are blah, blah, blah. And everyone was like, wow, that describes me. Thing is if they said Pisces, they would get Pisces are blah, same thing. And everyone was like, oh, that describes me. Now, maybe once upon a time, there were personality differences based on how much people ate, how much the mothers ate when they were pregnant with the child, and what sort of nutrition the child got when it was first growing up. So, if you were born in the winter, or actually, if you were born in early spring, you didn't have much nutrition while you were growing up. If you were born in the summer, lots of fresh vegetables, lots of vitamins, great stuff. Born in the fall, winter, lots of fats, lots of animal products. So there was some dietary differences, and that may have caused slight personality differences. But as with the butter, the whole world has become homogenized. So people eat the same thing pretty much year round, which means that all of those different personality variations that came with food changes really just kind of evened out. I mean, we live inside pretty much, so it's the same temperature, there isn't much change to anything year round now, which is part of the beauty of modern society, and maybe it's one of the drawbacks. But anyway, that is that.